The following is a CNBC original production.
Tonight, on the March edition of Business Nation, and meet the California hippie who concocted a drink and created a fortune in our monthly feature, How I Made My Millions. Coming up, he came up with a drink that calmed his stomach and fattened his wallet.
No matter what happens right now, I can say I went for it. You know, I gave 100%, and I know I made a difference.
How I Made My Millions, when Business Nation continues. Now, our monthly feature, How I Made My Millions. Once again, David Faber.
Not too long ago, Chris Reed was a self-proclaimed hippie with a dream. Today, he's a self-proclaimed hippie with a very large bank account, and he owes it all to ginger ale. Here's tonight's edition of How I Made My Millions. Chris Reed used to spend his days as a chemical engineer, liquefying and purifying natural gas. But in his mind, something else was brewing.
I had like a midlife crisis at 27. I said, man, what am I going to do with this life?
So Reed quit his job, moved to Hollywood, and bought a guitar. But musical passion alone couldn't pay the bills.
I started looking, okay, maybe I'm not going to make my fortune as a rock and roller. What can I do as a business that I can start now that would really be beneficial?
For years, Reed had studied herbal medicines, and he started to focus on ginger, a root long known for its medicinal properties.
There are medical studies showing ginger is more effective than Dramamine for motion sickness. Ginger is anti-inflammatory, so it's great for the inflammation of arthritis.
Ginger's health benefits are what helped make ginger ale a top-selling soda for decades. But Reed soon found
the ginger ale doesn't have ginger in it. To make a soft drink nowadays, they'll go to a flavor and fragrance laboratory that isolates components out of sometimes natural ingredients, sometimes artificial ingredients, and they'll come up with flavors. It's very standardized, consistent, and inexpensive. It's just not as good as Mother Nature. If you want a quality ginger ale, you got to brew it from the fresh, whole roots.
Reed set out to make a beverage that tasted good and offered benefits beyond the bubbles. Using only natural ingredients, he spent $5,000 and more than 2 years developing the recipe that would become Reed's Ginger Brew. A soda that is brewed like a beer, but not long enough to let the alcohol ferment.
So I start brewing up the roots. After that, it comes out into a whirlpool, all this brew. And I'm like, well, how do we mix it in? He says, well, here's the canoe paddle. So I'm taking a canoe paddle and we're stirring this thing. It was all really heady in the beginning. Because when I made this authentic ginger ale, I had no idea the response rate. So when the first day it was out in the marketplace and people reordered that day, I was on cloud 9.
Reed's, which had sales of only $3,000 in 1989, jumped to $500,000 2 years later. Reed was among the first to quench the public's thirst for natural sodas. But he still wasn't confident enough to quit his day job.
So what are we doing with this air compressor? I was COO, CFO, and CEO for the first 17 years. It was a part-time job, too, because I was doing other work. I wouldn't quit my daytime job until this thing was paying enough.
Today, this is his day job. Reed's has hit $12 million in sales and went public in 2006. With 3 million shares in his name, Reed's initial $5,000 investment has made him a millionaire many times over.
No matter what happens right now, I can say I went for it. I gave 100%, 200% on this thing, and I've put in a lot of time, and I've created a tremendous brand out in America. And I know I've made a difference.
Whether he knew it or not, Chris Reed had impeccable timing when he launched his company. Since he got into the business, the natural foods industry has exploded, growing from $2 billion a year in sales to an astounding $55 billion. We'll be right back.